The college enrollment crisis. This is about how men are enrolling in college at way less rates than women, or is it something else? About birth rates? Check it out. College enrollment crisis.
When the students at Birmingham Southern College chose their school, they were probably thinking about its small class sizes, picturesque campus, and competitive baseball team.
Okay.
What they probably weren't thinking about was whether it would still exist by the time they graduated.
What?
After all, this Alabama liberal arts college was founded in 1856.
Liberal?
5 years before the Civil War. Over its
Why don't they ever teach conservative arts? That's a question I've been asking.
168-year lifetime, it survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and even a few pandemics. And yet, one Friday last May, it closed its doors forever, leaving its College World Series team stranded mid-tournament, playing for a now non-existent school.
Why did it close?
Across the nation, prospective students spend hours comparing each school's location, faculty, campus, and courses. Occasionally, they even consider its cost.
Okay, yeah.
Rarely, however, do they glance at its balance sheet. We take for granted that someone will always be around to store our transcripts, and that the name on our diplomas will hold.
It's insane to be in the college business and go out of business. You get the world's dumbest 18-year-olds into massive debt for a degree that's pretty easy to fucking churn out. You pay teachers almost nothing. All the money goes to administration, and then you siphon off a bunch for a big fucking sports team that you make money on. How the fuck do you fail this business? It's like a fucking incredibly lucrative business. By the way, if you make the classes really easy and teach them nothing but they get A's, they're happy. They don't complain. They reward you. If you teach them nothing but give them a fucking degree, they fucking reward you. It's crazy. It's the easiest fucking business you could possibly have.
If not gain, in value. But this is not nearly as safe an assumption as you might imagine. Between 1996 and 2023, nearly a third of all for-profit community colleges closed forever, according to the Federal Reserve. That's over 1,200 schools, about 45 a year. Even 7% of 4-year nonprofits closed over that same period. Hundreds of thousands of students have been affected, their plans abruptly delayed or derailed. On average,
I mean, it's always a bad look when you have a college on your resume and that college, if you look it up, is no longer existing. It's like out of business. That's a bad look. It just doesn't give off the right vibe.
fewer than half ever re-enroll at another school. Just 32% have their debt forgiven. And things are about to get a whole lot worse. Sponsored by Brilliant. Learn math, science, and computer science the to Dr. Nader. It's expected steadily. Basic prompt in the description. This is the basic problem. For decades, enrollment at four-year universities has been steadily increasing. But starting next school year, it's expected to fall dramatically by about 10% over the first 5 years alone, according to Dr. Nathan Graw of Carleton College. This is not about 18-year-olds dropping out to become plumbers or electricians. True, Americans are unhappy with the state of college.
Anyone in Gen Z want to tell me? I heard this is true. I heard more people who are, maybe not even Gen Z, I mean, yeah, it is younger Gen Z, who just say, fuck it, I'm going to go into the trades. Which I'm not necessarily saying is a bad thing, but I've heard from people that it's a more common saying. That people just say, like, I don't give a shit about any of this school shit, I'm going to go into the trades. I'm not making a comment on whether it's a good idea or not. Honestly, I think college is way overpriced for a lot of things. What I'm saying is I want to understand if people say it a lot. That's what I've heard. I've heard that people say it a lot more. It's like a common refrain. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you for confirming.
In a 2015 Gallup survey, 57% of respondents said they had quite a lot or a great deal of confidence in higher education. By 2023, that number was down to just 36%. But take a look at the enrollment rate. As you can see, a smaller share of young people are choosing to attend, but only just barely. About 39% today versus 42% 15 years ago. Young people, it seems, are frustrated, yet feel they have nowhere else to go.
Okay.
In other words, the crisis facing schools today is not about the enrollment rate. Although perhaps they
Is
wish
that the total
it
number
were.
of young people?
You can convince skeptical 18-year-olds about the value of a college degree. But you can't convince an 18-year-old that doesn't exist. And that's the issue they now confront. For nearly 20 years after 1990, the average size of an American family hovered right around 2 children. Then, during the Great Recession, it began to fall. And it's been falling ever since. Today, the US birth rate is about half a child smaller than it was in 2007. Well, it's now been 17 years since the Great Recession, and it takes about 18 years to produce a college freshman.
Right.
Which means we're 1 school year away from this smaller cohort of babies born in 2008 enrolling in college. This year, about 4 million students will graduate high school. By 2037, just 3.5 will, according to the...
Bro, Gen Beta class sizes are going to be small as shit. Gen Beta is going to have a fucking empty recess, dude. They're going to have open swings on the swing set. Lucky them.
Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. College hasn't gone out of fashion, but having children has. And that spells trouble for the institutions that depend on them. Now, in the grand scheme of things, this may not sound catastrophic. Surely, Penn State can manage with fewer than 89,000 students, for example. But here's the problem. Birth rates weren't the only thing that fell and never recovered after the Great Recession.
My gam.
During economic downturns, state and local governments are squeezed in 2 directions. There's more need than ever for things like unemployment, food stamps, and Medicaid, so expenditures go up.
Never recovered.
Meanwhile, sales, property, income, and corporate tax revenues go down. So, to weather the storm, states cut back on nearly everything deemed non-essential. Bus routes are cut, DMV lines somehow get longer,
Sick.
and good luck getting that pothole fixed. Also on the chopping block are colleges.
This is what I'm talking about when I say that, people, when you tell them that there's not enough babies being born, they're like, well, we don't need more babies. Overpopulation. Maybe it's good to have fewer people. But they never understand that, like, you need to have a certain number of working age people to support everyone else, especially all the old people that aren't working, that have to use the services. You can't have a society with a bunch of old people and a few young people supporting it. The pyramid has to be right. If you fuck up the pyramid and it's not appropriately sized, everything falls apart. The services don't work.
Between 2008 and 13, state appropriations for higher education fell by over $13 billion.
Tell the olds to get to work. I mean, they're already doing that. I feel like people are delaying their retirement to stay working if they're not already super rich. Like, some boomers just made it good. The boomers that didn't buy a house 30 years ago, they're working harder than ever.
16 states cut their funding by over 20%, and 6 states by over 30%. Arizona went even further, cutting its appropriations in half. So,
they want to greet people at Walmart? Yeah, you think the Walmart graders are doing it because they just have a pure joy of it? Not because they might be super old, can't get another job, and need the money?
stay alive, schools had a choice. They could either reduce expenses or raise tuition. And you can probably guess which path they took. The thing to remember about universities is that they're notoriously inflexible. Every fiber of their being is predisposed to resist change, sometimes for the better, often for the worse. Partly, this is cultural, but it's also economic. A school's largest expenses are personnel, many of which are tenured and thus contractually impossible to lay off on a whim, and giant fixed assets like libraries and dorms.
What if we just got like a huge university like this, like a big campus with the buildings, but it's just one big iPad inside that plays Marketing Monday videos on loop? That way we can cut all the human expenses. And we name it Hustlers University. Okay? That could be like a really good business model. How much are we charging? Probably more, because the knowledge is better.
Which also aren't easy to get rid of. Reducing expenses, in other words, is hard. Doing it quickly is even harder. Needless to say, college presidents don't become popular by making these painful cuts. Thus, whenever the pressures of the
This is the same reason that fucking Doge is not going to work. As much as fucking Vivek and Elon talk about it, actually cutting $2 trillion from the federal budget will make a ton of fucking enemies, put a ton of people out of work, cause huge slowdowns in relevant states, be extremely unpopular. I'm not saying we don't need to reduce our expenses. I'm saying they're not going to have the will to do it, and they're already weaseling out. They're already using weasel words and saying, well, we're not going to get exactly $2 trillion. And, well, they're just not going to do it. Because you have to cut you have to cut the fucking military, you have to cut Social Security. To get $2 trillion out, you can't just like, oh, we cut an experiment with some people that were fucking testing birds or whatever. They can't, they have to cut real shit, and they're not going to do it. So the whole thing was a bluff. It's all talk to talk.
by making these painful cuts. Thus, whenever the pressures of the market penetrate their insular walls, the burden of restoring equilibrium usually falls on the one easy lever they can pull: admissions, and tuition in particular. Much easier to update a number on the website than cancel a $20 million.
And schools can do this, but our government cannot, because that means raising taxes. Like, the equivalent of tuition for our country is taxes. But raising taxes is way fucking, like, a school can raise tuition easy. It's nearly fucking impossible politically to raise taxes. So you can't get the cuts because they're super unpopular, and you can't raise taxes. It's a fucking crisis. It's a fucking crisis. All you can do is print the money and cause inflation. That's your only out. And that's the fucking situation we find ourselves in. And every leader says, oh, we'll fix it. I got a plan to fix it. But they don't. They don't. I promise you. Trump is going to fucking balloon the deficit just as much as Biden did. What if we print other countries' money and spent that instead? Oh, you mean the North Korea strategy? Where you build a world-class dollar counterfeiting operation. It's actually based. Dude, with our money and technology, what if we just fired up a Canadian money printer and we inflate the shit out of their currency? Buy a bunch of oil with Canadian dollars? That's genius. That's a smart idea. We're joking. That's the best idea I've heard. From you, Trump, and Harris, that's the best idea I've heard to deal with the national debt. That's the only one that has any fucking real chance.
Dollar renovation, or sell the 100-year-old library. So that's exactly what they did. This is the share of revenue schools earn from tuition, and this is the Great Recession. As you can see, when public appropriations fell, tuition rose. Now, these budget cuts are invariably sold at the time as a temporary reshuffling of priorities, a delay, not cancellation. But watch what happens when we zoom out. After the 1990 recession, appropriations fell, so tuition rose. Sure, starting here around 1998, states finally began restoring funding. But by the time the dot-com bubble burst in 2001, this funding had still not fully recovered from the last downturn. Meanwhile, this new recession caused tuition to rise again. Then it rose again after 2008. Since then, appropriations have started to return, but again, not nearly as fast as they fell. A full decade after the 2008 recession, state spending was still down by a quarter in Texas, a third in Mississippi, and a whopping 54% in Arizona. The money just never came back. Over the long term, the trend is clear. the burden of paying for college has moved in only one direction. Each recession permanently shifts more of the cost from the public at large to individual families. Take the University of Washington, for instance. In 1989, the school received $20,674 inflation-adjusted dollars per student. 30 years later, in 2021, it still received about $20,000. But the state of Washington went from covering 80% of that cost to just 38%, with students paying the difference.
Yikes!
So dramatic was this shift that a few public schools are basically public in name only. The University of Wisconsin-Madison, for instance, receives just 14% of its funding from the state of Wisconsin, while UT Austin is down to just 11%. What this means is that even schools express
ASU fucked up UT Austin in Ivy Law League of Legends when I was there. Just want you guys to know that. UT Austin got their fucking ass kicked. They got crushed for my Twisted Fate. Sorry, deal with it. I blue carded their ass back to the fucking... What's their logo or mascot? The Badgers. I blue carded those Badger asses back to the fucking dam. Longhorns. Whatever. Whatever it is.
created to educate, enrich, and serve their own residents, have effectively transformed into hyper-capitalist, quasi-corporate enterprises. After all, the money's gotta come from somewhere. And somewhere means the pockets of local families. When that fails, it means out-of-state students, who typically pay 2 or 3 times as much for the same education. And when even those run out, it means international students, who are often treated like cash cows.
Cha-ching!
Now, for the last 17 years, this model has served colleges well. Sure, parents complained about the rising cost of tuition, but they still dutifully mortgaged their homes to afford it. And yes, a few eyebrows were raised at the absurd length schools...
Oh, nobody's mortgaging their home. The student debt was easy to access. It is easy to access. They'll happily give you a fucking massive-ass loan at 18. That's why the prices can rise this much. It's because you can get access to easy fucking capital as a child if you say it's for a fucking degree. You can get an exorbitant loan they would not give you at a bank for any business idea or anything else, just to get a degree. And so they can charge whatever they want because you'll always be able to pay because you can always get the student debt. Making easy access to student loans and making it basically uncapped, unlimited, just allowed them to raise the price. It did the opposite effect. It didn't help. It was a good intention, which is like, hey, we're going to make it easier for everyone to get student loans so more people can go to school. But all it did was make the price of school go up.
Went to attract full-price paying students. From luxury dorms to lazy rivers to climbing walls and golf simulators.
Oh, shit.
But hey, the lights stayed on and professors got paid. As far as their balance sheets were concerned, things were going just fine. The problem, of course, was that schools had become incredibly fragile. Since students were now footing most of the bill, even the loss of a few of them could cause serious trouble. Schools didn't just become extremely dependent on tuition revenue. They did so at the exact moment birth rates fell, 2008, laying the foundations for a demographic time bomb 18 years later. And today, it's finally about to explode. In other words, schools now find themselves back where they were in 2008. This time, the problem is twofold: lower state funding and declining enrollment. But the effect is the same.
Okay, why don't we just put an iPad in Gen Alpha's hands that has a contract for a $200,000 student loan debt on it and get them signed up right then? The tuition can go immediately to the college. They get money right now, and the Gen Alpha kid can figure it out when he grows up. Fucking easy. I solved the problem. We'll just go around child by child and sign them up early. And then when they grow up and are like, wait, can't figure this out, then we'll deal with that when we get there. But I've solved the problem for at least 10 more years.
A budget shortfall. Of course, they could take this opportunity to reduce expenses. They could finally stop and do some painful but necessary soul-searching. asking difficult questions like how best to fulfill their missions and deliver a quality education at a price the average family can actually afford. They could trim their bloated administrative budgets and forego their extravagant amenities. But that's not what they did after 2008,
I don't think
or 2001, or 1990.
Over my dead fucking body, we're
So,
doing
if
that.
history is any indication, they'll do what they've always done. You guessed it, raise tuition. That's right, college may get even...
Anyone here 18 or younger and thinking about going to college soon? Yep. Me. What are the prices like? Are you doing student loans? Are you doing FAFSA and stuff? Couple hundo K. Sheesh. 60K semester? Is that what you said? Holy fuck. 60K? 40K in-state a year? 40K a year in-state? What the fuck? Education is free in my country? Okay. If you're not educated on the hard knocks of the United States, then it's free because it has no value. Do you know what I'm saying? If you're not getting the fucking real... If there's not an eagle flying overhead while you're learning, then you didn't learn shit. Canada, 2K a semester? 2K CAD? That's fucking crazy. Did you take a year of Korea? I didn't take a year in Korea. Korea took a year from me. I could have learned more at Arizona State University, but I decided to give my knowledge to Korea by spreading the gospel. So I went around and explained to Koreans in their second most prestigious school how things are done at ASU. I taught them how to play beer bong.
less affordable. Now, some schools will be just fine. These, your Columbias and your Johns Hopkins, are what author Jeffrey Selengo calls sellers. Their prestigious names draw students from around the country. They receive far more qualified applications than they have seats in each class, and this allows them to name practically any price. Ironically, these same schools that can charge nearly 6 figures a year are also those that—
Dude, it's just so base to spend 6 figures a year going to a class with a teacher teaching outdated material and using ChatGPT to answer all the questions. There is nothing more base than that, dude. And then go back to your dorm and play League of Legends. That's so fucking awesome, dude.
at least need to. Their massive endowment—
I'd pay 7 figures if they let me. I promise you they let you. You can absolutely pay more. They will.
endowments make them far less dependent on tuition revenue. The problem is, by definition, there aren't that many of them. That's what makes them so desirable. Sellers represent a tiny, tiny fraction of the market for higher education. Just 10% of schools accept less than half of all applicants, and only a few of those are highly selective, with acceptance rates of 20% or less. The vast majority of schools, 67%, accept virtually everyone who applies. They have to. These are your buyers. Since buyers don't have to.
Just if you guys don't understand what he's talking about, like this one right here would be ASU, elite. This is like MIT or something. A little, you know, a little more, looks hefty no matter what, but like they have a little bit of standards. And this is like Harvard, where it's just like you can just fucking, you got a pulse? Go on in, dude. You know what I'm saying?
These are your buyers. Since buyers don't have nationally recognized brand names, they recruit almost exclusively from their surrounding region, state, or even town. 60% of all freshmen, after all, attend college within 50 miles of their hometowns. This means they have a very limited pool of potential applicants. They rely on their local communities, and their communities rely on them for tax revenue, for employment, for migration, and economic activity. Meanwhile, these same schools—
There's always that, you know, trade-off in the student's mind where it's like, you want to go to the school near you because it's less expensive, and you know the area, and your friends are often there. And you want to go to the school out of state or farther away because you want to, like, branch out, do your own thing, get away from your parents. I got the best of the both worlds because I wanted to stay with my friend. I just moved to Arizona when I did the last year of high school, but my parents moved. So I got to stay and go where my people were going, but then my parents went to Germany. And so I didn't have to fucking see them or have them nearby. It was fucking goated. I live 2.5 hours away in state, and it's pretty perfect. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the good system. In general, like, unless you fucking hate your parents, it's like kind of good because sometimes you want to just fucking kick it with them. You want to hang out.
Schools are overwhelmingly small, and thus overwhelmingly fragile. 75% of all colleges have fewer than 5,000 students.
Wait, really?
And a third have fewer than 1,000. In other words, nearly 1,000 universities across the country enroll fewer than 250 new students a year. Therefore, if just 25 fewer students enroll next year, that class will generate at least 10% less revenue. A few dozen students here or there can make or break an entire university. And needless to say, many schools will lose a lot more than a few dozen.
Okay.
University of Pennsylvania professor of education Robert Zen.
Just charge the Zoomers that are still there double. What's the problem? Just like charge them more. Play ads during lectures. See, we're thinking outside the box. Yeah, during a lecture, play an ad for DraftKings. Let college students gamble on their college's sports team. Build a casino in the school that bets on your college's sports team and then take a fucking cut.
Zemsky estimates that about 20% of all schools face substantial financial risk.
Oh my God, dude. You know what you should actually do? If you fail a test, you should be able to spend $1,000 or something to retake it. Like a pay to win. You should be able to spend $1,000 to just fucking re-roll. You should be able to, when you first walk into a class, spend $3,000 to roll for an A. You should be able to roll for an A, dude. What are the odds? Poor. It's like, no, it's like a gotcha. It's like a 5-star and a gotcha. It's like rare. You probably won't get it, but if you do get it, you can skip the class. Easy.
Risk. Likewise, one consulting company estimates that 560 public and nonprofit four-year universities are at serious risk of potential closure. Colleges are about to experience a painful reckoning, which means students should start asking the uncomfortable question those at Birmingham Southern College surely wish they had. Will this school still be around by the time I graduate?
This school looks nice. If it's out of business, you think we could buy it? You guys want to make the fucking Atrioc University here? Who plays baseball? How much could this place? This place looks fucking sick, dude. Atrioc State University? This would be fucking sick. Obviously, we'll have to change this baseball field into a Quidditch court. Into a Quidditch pitch, I'm sorry. Couple quaffles right here. 3 rings right here. That's going to be fucking awesome.
17-year-olds need not become experts at reading balance sheets. But if you're applying to a small school, for example, you might consider checking whether enrollment has been on a long-term decline. You might also consider diversifying your education. Today's sponsor, Brilliant, can help you.
Okay, come on. No, that's a little bit. No, that's not. Anyway, interesting video. He did talk a little slow. As people pointed out, way too much, but he got there.